astronomer.org. And yeah, it'll be for the 2025 year.
And one of the cool things about this is you get to stay up here and live at the canyon.
Yes.
In fact, where we're sitting right now.
Yes.
This is one of the rooms of the Verkamp. What do they call it? The Verkamp house apartments?
It's
What was it back
Verkamps.
in the day? Verkamps, yeah.
I think they sold a bunch of different things and made a living and raised their family here right on the rim. And so now Grand Canyon Conservancy has a store on the first floor of this building, and then the Residency is on the second floor.
And we're sitting in one of the bedrooms right now.
Yes.
Very cozy. But this apartment is great because you go out on the deck and there's the Grand Canyon. It's a great view, so a place of inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
And Rader, you're of course involved with this a lot with the programming side. Mm-hmm. So what do astronomers and residents typically do with that?
Well, I mean, as Clover was saying, like the goal of the program is to, in a lot of ways, create a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. You know, we are looking at dark skies, the threats of light pollution, the benefits of pristine natural darkness from several different angles. So it's not like a traditional program,
yes,
you know, where you have, I mean, it is in many ways, but in many ways it's not, where you have, the astronomer coming and providing lectures to the public. I mean, that's one aspect of the program, but of course, as Clover was saying, we've had, you know, Lauren Camp, who's the poet laureate of New Mexico. Yes. Now. She came here and did a residency writing poems about the Grand Canyon. She was so prolific, you know, in her time that she was able to publish some work based on poems about the night skies over Grand Canyon. Astrophotographers, you know, Ima Barrera, she's an alumna who came and did incredibly beautiful photographs of the night skies, and all sorts of other people from coming at dark skies and light pollution from slightly different angles. And then when you kind of step back and you see all the alumni who have contributed to this understanding of dark skies, you start to realize just how diverse dark skies is, just how sort of integral it is to all aspects of our lives. I mean, Dr. Adine Denton, for example, she came here and she did a residency of public programs, but she also did an interpretive dance piece. She's an astrophysicist, but she's a modern dancer as well. And so she came and by living here at the canyon in Verkamps and really just letting the canyon seep into your pores, she was able to hike down to the bottom of the canyon, hike back up, do a bunch of public presentations, and really, you know, the lens of interpretive dance. And we have that recorded, and she did public presentations on it. And so that's the really fun aspect of this program to me is being able to see people like yourself, you know, come here and do incredible recreation photo projects of the Apollo astronauts, you know, taking their incredible trip down to the bottom of the canyon in preparation for their forays on the lunar surface, and recreating those shots and putting them side by side. Those type of things just give you so many incredible insights about dark skies and its place in not only science but in culture as well. So that's what excites me the most about it.
And that's something that really struck me when I was fortunate enough to do the program, and I'm doing it again as an alumni.
Yeah.
It's great. But you guys were brilliant in putting this together, because I didn't quite get the gist of that until being here for a little bit. And this is such a human experience of seeing the dark sky and connecting with the universe. And it's a little bit different for all of us because we're all wired differently. Right. And to have artists and scientists and historians and musicians and others interpret it in their own way, it makes it more accessible for the rest of humanity.
Right.
And the stuff they're doing, like the first astronomer in residence, Tyler Nordgren, who came up with coined the phrase "half the park is after dark."
Boom, right there.
I'm back here, and it's brilliant, and it really captures the Grand Canyon. That, holy cow! During the daytime, this is a phenomenal destination.
Yeah.
It is at nighttime also.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about the program too, which you mentioned, is like Tyler produced this print,
yes,
which now continues to be purchased and placed in homes everywhere to raise awareness. And then also most of the astronomers that we have had in residence are producing something with the work that they've done here because of their love for astronomy and dark skies. And so we've got, books that you have written as a result of being here, and the book of poems in Old Sky that Lauren Camp wrote, and Dean Denton, after she left, she wrote an article for Dance Magazine about her relationship to understanding space and the astronaut, how they move in relationship to dance and that choreography. So those interdisciplinary connections, and then how it lives beyond the park, I think is really wonderful.
Well, and there's also been a lot of great residents who have brought their expertise in education and outreach as well, right? So there's this incredible artistic aspect, and I think that's one of the reasons why Clover is such a strong program manager for this, is because she comes from, that artist in residence type of background, and so she's able to really infuse this beautiful creativity that comes typically in artist in residence programs into the astronomer residence programs, and get really people thinking about dark skies through that lens. So we have that whole aspect of it, but then we've had incredible alumni like Dr. Cameron Hummels and Dr. Daniel Fleisch and Dean Regas, shout out to everybody, who have come and have given the park just insights into how to connect to the public. I mean, Dr. Jennifer Hoffman, for example, she did this incredible project where she went out to the rim at sunset every night at Hopi Point. It's like one of the most popular views for sunset. And during the equinox, the sun every night is moving really far, along the azimuth, along the horizon. And she set up this tripod in the same place every night. And she was inviting visitors to set up their own cameras and take pictures of the setting sun around the same time. And then she's stitching them together to show how the sun moves very fast along the horizon on the equinox. And that's just, she was engaging with people directly on the ground in this pop-up way. There was snow on the ground here and there, so she was bundled up in her warm clothes, but she really, and she's somebody who's directing an observatory up in Colorado, but she's able to come here and bring astronomy down to folks like us, and it's just a really beautiful thing. So I just love that confluence of science and culture and art that this residency program has been able to provide.
And when you have visitors that can participate directly, that it just rings true with them. It's more than just watching somebody else do it. When they do it themselves, they become part of it.
Yes.
Well, it was really exciting to see her set up just a telescope that was looking at the moon, and to have people see the moon for the very first time during their visit to the Grand Canyon, which for most people is also a first.
Yep.
That was a really moving experience to watch people also have that additional level of relationship.
So this is obviously a synergistic program. Grand Canyon National Park, Grand Canyon Conservancy. What is the connection between the two, and how did it evolve from the original funding source, as it were, to these programs?
Well, that's a really good question. So there was a researcher here named Eddie McKee who decided that he wanted to find a way to support the park in its efforts. So he established the Grand Canyon Association, I believe it was first called.
Natural History Association.
Okay, Natural History. That was the piece I was missing, because we just found some notes from like 1935 or something that were related to the organization in the very beginning.
Sweet.
Anyway, I think it was established, 1935. And so that organization has grown over time to be able to serve the park and all of its priority projects. I am not completely sure how the Field Institute became a part of our programming, but the Field Institute is one of our mission-based programs, and the Residency is the other mission-based program. So we look at these now as an opportunity for us to really help people cherish the Grand Canyon, in addition to changing the hearts and minds of the people who are here to understand why the preservation of the park and the dark skies are important, among other things. And sorry,
it's been a great
I just
partnership.
lost what I was
it's,
saying.
yeah, I mean, it's and Grand Canyon Conservancy
Yeah.
has been integral in supporting some of these park priorities. And the thing about dark skies is, it wasn't always necessarily, I mean, in the history of Grand Canyon, a park priority. I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking, as Clover was saying, this was started back in the 1930s by Eddie McKee, a park ranger. There are some early what are called Grand Canyon nature notes. One of the first interpretive offerings from the National Park Service, and there's a little article in the nature notes of when Grand Canyon Natural History Association was started. But another thing in those early nature notes were articles from early park rangers talking about Saturn up in the night sky, or a lunar rainbow, or seeing the aurora from Grand Canyon.
Those are priceless.
There's some really early gems in there, but the really interesting thing about it is, if you think about that, all of the things that they were saying early on were more like what I like to call the charismatic megafauna of the night sky, right? It's like things about the moon or planets or things like that, where it was interesting to talk about these astronomical phenomena in the context of Grand Canyon, but you don't see talk about being able to see Andromeda with the naked eye, or being able to see the Milky Way with the naked eye, because back in the 1920s, that was more or less ubiquitous.
Everybody did,
throughout the United States, and so it was more of a novelty to talk about seeing things like Saturn and the Moon at the Grand Canyon. It was only about the 1960s or 70s that became, coined as a term, and star parties started to be seated in different national parks. The first iteration of Grand Canyon Star Party was actually seated here in the mid-1970s by none other than John Dobson, the founder or the creator of the famous Dobsonian telescope, which is now a standard telescope on all star party fields, and the appreciation for pristine natural darkness started to take hold. And so from there, we slowly started to integrate dark skies into the national parks, because we quickly started to realize from the 1970s onward that some of the last sanctuaries for pristine natural darkness happen to be found in these massive, protected spaces. And so as about the 90s is when the Park Service started to really codify dark skies as a resource worth protecting. We came up with the National Park Night Skies team in 1999, which is basically comprised of two people. And it was about the 2010 around that was finally turned into a proper division in the National Park Service called the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. So there's
everything.
There's this entire division in the parks that is dedicated to these more intangible, nebulous type of resources, natural sounds and natural darkness. And I think that's a really beautiful idea. And it was really around that time that a lot of cooperating associations like Grand Canyon Conservancy, and working together with their respective national parks, started to raise funds and start programs like the Astronomer and Residence program to meet that growing need. Because,
So when you got here, that effort was starting at the Grand Canyon.
Right.
But it was still kind of in the early days of the Grand Canyon of more than just mentioning it. I mean, they're actively starting to do some.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research into this, shockingly enough, and you do have rangers, as early as the 1950s and 60s, giving campfire programs about the night skies, but that's just personality-based rangers doing this, that, or the other. But you're absolutely right. It was about 2000, 2010-ish where we really started to make this push to make dark skies sort of one of the foundational resources that this park offers, among the many others, right? The geology, the indigenous peoples here, the history, the ecology. We're starting to understand night skies in that same realm now, which is a big victory for the movement.
And there was a time also when we're looking forward to the centennial of the Park Service as well as Grand Canyon as a national park.
Right.
And so was that tied in with those kind of celebrations? This is coming up in a few years.
Yeah. So the Park Service. So the Park Service started in 1916, and so our centennial was 2016. About 5 years prior to that, 2011, the Park Service came out with a document called A Call to Action. And it outlines the next 100 years of stewardship in the National Park Service. And there's about, I can't remember how many bullet points, maybe 100 bullet points of different areas that we really want to focus on. And number 27 was titled Starry, Starry Night. And it was about leading the way in protecting dark skies nationwide, developing cooperatives with different agencies. The Colorado Plateau Dark Skies Cooperative, the Basin and Range Dark Skies Cooperative, which works with different federal entities and private, public, entities to work together to really protect dark skies on that more holistic level. And so that's precisely when that type of stuff started to happen, and it's only taken off from there. I mean, it's like as you can attest to. Dark skies programs, fascinatingly, are the most popular programs in the park. I mean, if you have, say, 50 people at a geology talk, you're going to have 250 people at a night skies talk. And that's not to diminish the grandeur and beauty of Grand Canyon's geology. I mean, it's more of a testament to just the hunger that people have for experiencing something that is increasingly disappearing from our lives.
Yeah, I didn't realize until I got here what a privilege it is.
Mm-hmm.
What a resource it is. And and you don't know until you have the opportunity really to see what the difference is after having lived in Chicago for 25 years,
right.
And coming here and being able to see the Milky Way with the naked eye, and it's just incredible.
80% of the world lives in a place that you can't see the Milky Way. And so we have this at Lowell Observatory just south of the Grand Canyon that, these dark skies we have here, people are stunned. And I think that's one of the great things of the Grand Canyon. There certainly, as time goes on, there's more awareness about the programs that you guys are doing, but they're still, you talk to folks at night and they're just stunned. I had no idea.
Yeah.
They're expecting to see some really cool rock layers during the daytime. They had no idea that there was this bonus at nighttime.
Yeah, and one thing we always love talking about is this park, when we first started to pursue international dark sky park certification, we took some initial measurements of the park, measuring the quality of the night skies, and it was already.
It was decent.
It was a pretty, very, very dark side already. But I always love mentioning, the efforts that this park took to certify as an international dark sky park, because this is such a unique location in many ways, because we're the only national park in the entire country with a K through 12 school inside its borders.
Right.
So it's as much a community as it is a national park. And so when we initially, Grand Canyon Conservancy provided the funding to hire a lighting inventory specialist, basically, back in 2013. And she went around the park and she basically marked every single fixture in the park. It took like almost 2 years.
That's a project.
It's a project. And
that included down Phantom Ranch.
It included Phantom Ranch, Desert View, the North Rim, even the 4 lonely lights out at Torweep Valley, which is, there's one ranger. Shout out to Todd Celia who works out there. that ranger station is totally off the grid. Produces, it gets its own water, its own electricity, and he manages this massive amount of space out there. And there are 4 little lights on his. We went out there and made sure they got retrofit. But it ended up all told being 5,094 lights, which in terms of the scale of the retrofit process for a dark sky park has been it is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And so it's been this massive undertaking, and that whole process is fascinating. I mean, we can get into the nuts and bolts of that, but I just wanted to introduce that as an idea because it takes a lot of work to preserve natural darkness. It turns out,
Yes, it does.
and a lot of support and funding from Grand Canyon Conservancy and its members and donors, and so we are celebrating and continue to celebrate that us becoming an international dark sky park in 2019. And the work's not done. We're still working at it, but it's been a massive undertaking.
So the International Dark Sky Association, now called, I think it's Dark Sky.
Dark Sky International. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They changed the names to make it easier to talk about, I think.
Yeah. Right.
So they have a pretty strict series of things you have to check off the list to be a dark sky park or dark sky community or whatever, and it's several phases.
Right.
And so where are you in this now? You're kind of on the home stretch, right?
Yeah, so it's a really fascinating process. You have to once you apply to the certification, you have to show Dark Sky International before becoming an international dark sky park that you have retrofit 2/3 of your lights. So 67% of our lights out of 5,000. That's a big chunk, right?
Significant.
So happily, we had about 34% of our lights already dark sky friendly, just by happenstance. The guidelines are, a certain amount of kelvins they have to put out, they have to be shielded, this, that, and the other. So 34% of those met those guidelines. That means we had to actively retrofit about 1,700 lights or so just to become an international dark sky park. And we did that in June of 2019, which gave us that certification. But as you said, we have, from that date, you have 5 years then to make 90% of your lights dark sky compliant. And that meant that we had to actively
2024.
retrofit. Yeah, 2024, bringing us up to June 2024, and about 1,500, 1,600 more fixtures. Mm-hmm. We happily surpassed that milestone in January of 2024. So we are 92% compliant, something like that, 93% compliant now. And we have 5 more years now to make those last 10% of lights dark sky friendly. And a lot of people wonder, why are you guys celebrating 90%? Like, what is the big? Why just wait till 100%? Like, come on. The big deal is that 90% really does represent the bulk of the lights in the park, and Dark Sky International specifically gives you 5 extra years for that last 10% because they're inherently the most difficult lights to retrofit.
Yeah,
right?
you get the low-hanging fruit first.
You get all the low-hanging fruit, but then you're dealing with, think about, the clinic lights for our emergency services folks. Mm-hmm. I mentioned we have a K through 12 school here. There's an outdoor basketball court that has, floodlights for the team. It's like, how do you provide lights that both let the teams be able to see the color of their jerseys and also be dark sky friendly? So those type of trickier lights, one-off type of lights that we're working on.
What's interesting to me with this is because of the length of time you have, the technology is changing so fast that 5 years ago you had these alternates, now you have new ones, and so hopefully that makes it easier as you get closer to the end. They're the tougher ones to deal with, but you have more resources. Yeah,
and Flagstaff is leading the way, I think, in a lot of ways as an international dark sky place, as the world's first international dark sky place, where you're from, you live currently, and where Lowell Observatory is, really is, I think, doing a great job in keeping everybody up to date on the newest technology, things like narrowband amber lights and those type of things that are incredibly night sky friendly, and so kudos to Lowell Observatory and all the entities down there at Flagstaff for because we all work together in Northern Arizona here to kind
Right.
of figure out the best practices. And one interesting thing about this that I think you'd appreciate too, Kevin, is there was a lot of fixtures here up in the park that a lot of people don't think about this, but when it comes to historic structures here, we're sitting in Verkamp's
Right.
Verkamp's residence, which as Clover was saying earlier was built in 1906. We're on the eastern end of the historic village, which is a landmark, a National Historic Landmark, and basically every building here is historic in some way. And so, as somebody who appreciates history and the night skies,
Yeah.
it's as do I. It's something really interesting to think about. It's like, how do you go about retrofitting fixtures on historic buildings, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to ruin the integrity of the
Exactly,
of the building, because there's a lot of fixtures like at Bright Angel Lodge. If you ever come to the canyon and walk by, Bright Angel Lodge, the cabins, there are these beautiful ornate,
Right.
like tin, metal fixtures that you just can't change out, to become more night sky friendly. So there's a lot of little historical things that we did, historical restoration projects that we did during this whole process to both restore the historical integrity of these structures, but also improve the lighting. So there's a lot of like the El Tovar Hotel, we were able to remake the original fixtures that they had originally installed, and then just put some really warm lamps
Yeah.
inside them to make them night
Yeah,
sky
you can't
friendly.
see. Yeah,
Those type of things are really just fascinating to me.
and I think that's
So, sorry, go ahead.
go.
So I have a question which turns it just a little bit,
Uh-huh.
which is that, since I've been here, I have loved learning about all of this because this is
Yeah.
new for me. This really is an education. Every time I sit and listen to you talk about it, and the work that's been done here is incredible. We now live in Grand Canyon National Park. You and I do, at least.
Mhm.
Kevin's not far away.
It's his home away from home.
It's
Yes.
his home away from home.
I'm here
That's
for a week.
right. And it's pretty safe here.
Right,
It is
right.
pretty safe. And we've talked about the night sky and the importance of having the night sky available to look at, to understand who we are as a people, where we've been, where we're going. We're made of stardust, etc.
Mhm.
But for those people who don't live in an environment where they feel safe,
Mm.
how would you address the idea that darkness is something to fear?
That's a really good question. I've got thoughts. Do you have any thoughts?
Go ahead.
I think it's okay to fear darkness. It's a natural thing to fear darkness. It's a very complicated thing because there's a lot of natural fear in darkness, but there's also a lot of things that we don't have to fear on a societal level. I think there's an innate fear of darkness, but that's quite different from the societal fears of darkness. I feel like we have. There's this notion that more light equals safety, and this is one of the trickier aspects of the dark skies movement to navigate. Even though there's tons of science to back up that increased lighting in certain areas does not necessarily equate to decreased crime, right? And so the problem is for example, for crime and safety, big problems are just are poor lighting choices, like really poor lighting choices. Like think of parking lots in front of grocery stores that the lights cast incredibly bright lights down, but it creates contrast, for example, like deep contrast. Well, that's where a potential perpetrator might dwell, and so it's poor lighting choices that really lead to some of these things that can introduce crime and safety. There's a lot of studies that show, for example, that having your porch light on at your house all night doesn't necessarily make you well, I should flip that. Having your lights off all night doesn't make you more susceptible to burglary, for example. A lot of people actually argue that having your lights on all night is basically just showing the burglar what's on
Makes it
offer.
easy, yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, they got yeah, this out
Right.
front, this out front. The smart lighting decision, for example, would be something like, you know, motion sensors, because the burglar comes up to the front of the house. They don't know if that was a motion sensor that triggered the light to come on, or the owner of the house about to meet them outside. And so it's these type of lighting choices that really help to decrease crime and safety, and it's really not a mutually exclusive thing. You can be incredibly safe while also protecting dark skies.
I agree with that. That you know, you go to a place that's dark sky, and you notice it's dimmer, but I don't know. I think if you're used to really bright lights, you can feel it feels different. But
Yeah.
really, you know, protecting the dark skies isn't about getting rid of all the light.
Mm-hmm.
And as Rader was saying, it's what light is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, light shining at the sky, does that help you with safety, or to help you to see the sidewalk? It's you know, the car lots we'll use for advertising. So there's one thing you look at is how lights are directed. Shielded lights point down where you need the light. So pointing light where you need it is one. And another thing is, you know, your neighbor that has a bright light on,
Right.
you don't want it shining beside you. It's supposed to be shining on a sidewalk. So
Mm-hmm.
having it properly pointed is one thing. The type of light, you know, we mentioned amber light, for instance, the warmer colors. It doesn't have to be a blinding white or blue. Amber, you still have light, but it doesn't affect your night vision as much. Or other negative impacts of artificial light that we're finding. You know, the dark sky movement started with astronomy, but we're finding biologically
Right.
artificial light is not good.
Right. It's not good for us. It's not
No.
good for the creatures.
Animals,
who thrive
plants,
off of,
right.
Right.
And then other things that, like you know, when you use the light, you know, do you need all of the light on at 2 a.m., for instance? And how much light you're using?
Oh, sure.
Do you have to have 800 watts burning through the sidewalk? Or so there's a lot of things that you can do that, you know, maintaining a safe environment for people, but it's just reducing all that extra glow that goes into the night.
Well, so in Clover, you know, you're coming from Chicago. You've been here 2 years now. What's been your transition like, if there has been one, or revelations about your relationship with darkness, pristine natural darkness, or the night sky in general, having now lived in Grand Canyon for 2 years, coming from Chicago? I mean, how do you relate to it now? I mean, is there a different feeling when, you know, night approaches, and is it different? What's your experience been like, I guess?
Yeah, I could talk about it from the perspective of a physical feeling almost. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's emotional also. There's this vastness that it doesn't, I don't feel as anxious, to be honest. I feel like there's something about being able to see the sky in its full glory from, I mean, as full as it is here. And the experience of being safe has been something that I've come to slowly, which actually started with Lauren Camp and I talking through darkness and how, especially as women, you know, we've have an extra layer of fear of going home at night in the dark by ourselves.
Right.
And she sort of challenged me after having some conversations with you and said, what if you weren't? Like, what if you weren't scared of the dark? And what if you were to look at it from the perspective of curiosity and how it challenges your way of relating with space and yourself, and how it forces you to go inside and really look at yourself and your own limitations, sort of spiritually, I think.
Very much so.
So I'd say
very Lauren Camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It really, I mean, it really shifted my experience, and being here, just I feel so much more secure, and I think that is not just because we're in a pretty safe
Right.
location, but it's also because of that expansiveness that you can see and sense
Mhm.
with all of your being.
Nice. Well, and I think, again, returning to that earlier point, I mean, I think it's a complicated relationship, and I think that's why we really specifically say in the Astronomer Residence program these complicated, complex relationships with natural darkness, because you introduce very good points, societal points, about you being a woman, and how that's different from my experience, for example, and that these type of discussions are what make this program so beautiful. Yep. And I think in a lot of ways it is. I mean, for me, it's totally okay to have that fear of natural darkness, but as Lauren kind of was implying there, it's like sitting with that a little bit, and maybe, in a lot of ways, it's the same type of feeling that the Grand Canyon itself gives to people during the day. It's this overwhelming sense of awe and terror at the beauty and overwhelmingness of nature.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so you stand on the rim of the canyon, and I don't think a lot of people are, I guess, right at the top feeling afraid. But I think, for example, those first explorers coming here, like Joseph Christmas Eyes, John Wesley Powell, or for the people who have been living here since time immemorial, like the 11 traditionally associated tribes of the canyon. I mean, there is, this intimacy that you experience with the canyon that really does have some fear mixed in there, at just like, whoa, the profundity of nature and the night skies. I mean, to be able to come out, like you said, to the canyon by day and experience that, and then at night to be welcomed by that feeling as well, is, I think it's complex, but it's good for us to reconnect with some of those earlier sort of those emotions that in a lot of ways are we have bludgeoned a little bit because of the way that we've structured society, right? With the excess light and things like that, for example. You know what I mean?
I agree. We're so tuned into technology, and so many of us live in well-lit areas. You're disconnected with the universe quite often, and the Grand Canyon is one of those places where you go and it makes you pause and think. To think about the darkness, and boy, I've always been afraid of the dark. How do I feel now, standing on the edge of this mile deep abyss?
Yeah, exactly.
But it makes you stand back and think, and get connected with the universe a little bit. And I think if everybody can do that for a few minutes, we're really succeeding.
Yeah.
One word that has come up again and again from the people who come to do their work with excitement and say, look at everything that exists here, is awe.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I remember Dr. Daniel Fleisch coming and saying, I am interested in awe.
Yes.
And how the Grand Canyon relates to that. I really, it's easy to say it's awe-inspiring, but to really reflect on what that experience is as a human being in a really tangible way. I don't think you can do that with an iPad in front of your face.
No.
Or
And we had a great conversation about this when last live stream, one of them that we did, and some of the past astronomers residents were talking about, was there a moment that just really struck you? And I think it was Dan who said, just the starkness, the darkness, and how brilliant the stars and the Milky Way and everything were. And I certainly feel that as an astronomy person, but also on the other end of the spectrum, with the moon up, nature's light pollution, if you could call it that. You can't see the stars as much and stuff, but I was awed. I mean, of course, awed when it's dark here and it's like, you're just dumbfounded. But seeing the full moon shining its rays down into the canyon, and it really allows you to connect the eons of time below and above. And that to me was just stunning to have that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we tend to organize our astronomy programs around the new moon cycle, and so there always tends to be sort of this disdain a little bit for when the moon comes out. But the truth is, I mean, your residency really brought this home to us, and brought that understanding to this park. Is the moon is very much part of the natural darkness here, and when you are living in a place or visiting a place like an International Dark Sky Park, and you're able to stick around for a new moon phase and then the full moon phase,
Right.
you really start to understand why, for example, the term lunacy became termed at all. And my understanding of the origin of that word is prior to the age of electric light, people were simply able to be out and about getting into trouble more during a full moon. And so you were, if you were out there getting in trouble, you were a lunatic, because the brightness of the moon in a pristine dark sky park is profound, and you can see the Grand Canyon. You can make out color in the Grand Canyon,
right.
And the temples and the formations out there. They take on this almost spectral form. It's like their ghosts are coming out at night, and it really just has this completely different vibe to it and feeling. And so, if you ever come to the Grand Canyon and you're disappointed that you came on a full moon, I mean, one, it's good to research this before you come, depending on when you want to come and what you want to see.
Yeah.
But if you happen to come on a full moon cycle like we're sort of in right now,
It's magical.
it's magical. Walking along the rim of the canyon at night, you don't need any lights at all. I mean, I've done hikes, long hikes into the Grand Canyon,
Yes.
purely under full moonlight, and no need for a headlamp at all. It's a truly magical experience. Yeah,
And I think, for people who are going on in life and you start getting worn down and humdrum and you're working all the time, if you want to feel alive, go to a place like Grand Canyon, where you have, of course, the splendor of the day, but the dark skies, and you really feel connected again. And I don't know, to me, every time I do it, I just feel alive. It's like you got a little zap, and you're really connected again. And when you're not able to do that, I don't know, you just feel this listlessness, I think, that we're just losing. It's like staring at a TV screen. That's what it feels like to me. Everyday life, and then you break out of that, and you really get that reconnection with nature and the universe.
From all the residents who come, every time they leave, they all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Just like you. The impact was so incredible and so intense, and I am going to miss it so deeply.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait for the opportunity to come back, because I don't know how I'll live without it.
And I live in the dark sky area.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I celebrate dark skies, but being at the canyon, and experiencing that with the canyon itself, it's dark skies on steroids, the cool factor.
Well, and hopefully that enlivens them in their research too. As a lot of these residents continue on with their research, they come here, they get invigorated about what they're actually doing on that more theoretical level, and pursue the great science that they're doing. And I know we've inspired that here, and it again, it just gets back to that complex relationship, I think, where depriving yourself a little bit almost. The canyon kind of it makes you work a little harder, to experience it. You got to get outside, you got to walk around, you've got to navigate a slightly different way, and having a little bit of that fear, having a little bit of that tiredness, and
right. You feel more alive.
You feel more alive in that, and that's a really good lesson, I think, for all of us, on just that larger level. What dark skies, that's just one aspect of this, of course, but it speaks to the importance of national parks on a whole, and how it truly is, one of America's best ideas, to be able to preserve these places, and not only preserve the ecology and the pristine scenery, but very, very deliberately to preserve those experiences that make us alive, and connect us as a nation. So they're incredibly important.
And hearing you talk, I think of Thoreau, sucking the marrow out of life, and just living life to the basics. He built his cabin, just basically living and really absorbing the universe around him, and it was profound for him. And his writings continue to be profound for people today. And it's the same. You're just put away the other stuff and just absorb this for a few minutes, and it's stunning.
It's whenever you take a backcountry hike or something in the canyon or elsewhere, all of a sudden, your morning bowl of oatmeal becomes gold,
Right, yeah.
or just a hot cup of tea or something like that.
Right.
All of a sudden, you don't take it for granted anymore, and so I like to think for those moments that our visitors are coming onto these programs and seeing the Milky Way for the very first time, they're having a similar type of experience where they're just fully imbibing what they're viewing in the Milky Way, and that's just it's attested to the fact that we'll just tons and tons of programs from my time here, you'll just have people break down and cry at looking at the
Right.
Milky Way and hugging you or something like that, just not holding back, and you can tell in that moment
Well, people
they
want to
feel
hug you
alive.
anyways.
Well,
That's beyond
I'm
that. Yeah.
lanky like a tree,
Yeah,
so it's kind of easy to get around the base there. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to share that with
Yeah.
visitors, and this program, Astronomer Residence program, and our Dark Skies program in general has, in 2023 we reached out to nearly 50,000 visitors through our programs, and so it's just been a fantastic journey so far.
And it's really great because so much of this is collaboration, working with different groups, and Grand Canyon National Park, Grand Canyon Conservancy, Lowell Observatory. It's been such a great partnership, and we're all doing the same thing, trying to, show people the wonders of the universe, step back and feel that awe and be inspired. And you like to think that folks leave and, they're a little bit better, they're a little bit more inspired, they have gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to talk about these things and keep promoting it. And knowing that tonight, whether it's cloudy or not, there's going to be people outside that want to look at the night sky or learn about the night sky.
Right.
Every night, it's like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, there's disappointment because as much as we complain about the clouds, Mother Nature doesn't listen to us.
Yeah. Right.
And so, but there's still, to me, last night, we went to Mather Point to look at the nearly full moon rising, and it was hidden for most of the time early on, and then it started coming in a little bit, and it was so eerie. And you're on the edge of the canyon, and then you start seeing more of the moon, and then you can start seeing more of the canyon.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was like a 1940s black and white movie that, it just had this eeriness and this mysteriousness to it. It had a really neat feel.
Yeah, no, it's incredible to experience that, and you've been a great part of that, and your residency was one of my favorites, and
much too short.
And much too short, yeah. So you come crawling back here in this
Right.
alumni visit, and we're really excited to have you. It's been awesome to partner with Lowell and Grand Canyon Conservancy and the National Park Service. I agree, it's been an incredible partnership, and again, hopefully we are inspiring not only those experiences here, but like you say, we are inspiring people to take some of these messages back to their community,
Yep.
And every once in a while, and actually literally yesterday was one such occasion, we get, reached out to by a visitor who, went on one of our dark sky programs and took the time to reach out and say, hey, this inspired me to such an extent that I am now actively pursuing, dark sky community or dark sky place status at my local park or my local city. And that just happened to me. I read it earlier today, somebody out in the Los Angeles area trying to create an urban dark sky place in one of the local parks there. And based off of her experience specifically, I'll send this to you guys, she quoted Flagstaff and Grand Canyon for inspiring her to do this. So it's kind of awesome.
No, that's
to see
great.
that,
And
That's awesome.
And it shows the value of partnership and us all being inspired to want to make a difference. And when you see that, every talk that one of your rangers or you give, how many people are in the audience? Then not all of them, but so many of them are affected in some way. Some to actively do something, and we should all try to make the world a better place in some way.
Yeah.
And if somebody leaves and said, "I'm going to help, protect the dark skies," that's huzzah, success.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, this has been great talking. As always, it goes way too fast. but our time has run out. So
We do
any
have
final?
2 questions.
Oh, we have a couple
Oh, wow.
If
questions.
you don't mind reading it back to
Nope,
me.
and that's from Cody Halfmoon. We were talking about the origin of the term lunacy, and we have
Oh, yeah.
Half
Oh,
Moon.
yeah.
So
There you go.
I don't know if she's half lunatic.
Yeah,
Or,
Yeah, only half.
yeah.
Someone is asking, this is Anna Stone from Facebook,
Hi, Anna.
is asking if there are any Star Party presentations that can be shared.
So in terms of like upcoming events here in the park, if you visit our upcoming Night Skies events webpage on the National Park, the Grand Canyon National Park website, that's where we have all our events listed. We also on our webpage and our YouTube channel have tons of online night sky presentations, things like that we've given. And then Grand Canyon Conservancy on their webpage often posts about the Astronomer Residence program, things like that. And you can learn more about that there. Yeah.
And I'll also mention, Anna, depending on where you live, and if you're just looking for virtual or not, Lowell Observatory, which is just down the road, we have essentially star parties every clear night. And even when it's not clear, we have astronomers, educators. There's so much great activity going on. We also do a lot of virtual programs. If you go to Lowell's YouTube page, there's just a lovely collection going back several years now of live streams, podcasts, several different series we did and continue to do. So there's a lot of options out there.
In fact, monthly, we do 2 video programs in collaboration with Grand Canyon Conservancy and Grand Canyon National Park. You can find that on any of our social media platforms. I don't know if they can hear me through the mic, but.
Yeah.
And the second question was a bit earlier on, so this might have been cleared up. I don't know if you want to repeat it for the mic, but
Question
it
2.
was Lowell Observatory at Grand Canyon. They were excited, so maybe clear up the
Was
location
Lowell
here, the
Observatory
partnership.
at Grand Canyon?
Yeah, right now, and frequently, but.
Yeah, so the question is Lowell Observatory at Grand Canyon. We're setting up a house here we're trying to build and be here permanently. Well, there's such a great collaboration with Grand Canyon Conservancy, Grand Canyon National Park, and we're all trying to do the same thing of inspiring people and sharing the wonders of the universe. And so we've been developing these partnerships thanks to our half-lunatic marketing person, Cody Halfmoon, which is your real name.
Yes.
But these partnerships where we, Lowell staff, educators, scientists, come up here for star parties to give talks. And that effort is just growing. Well, I think the idea is to maybe even make a regular thing where different scientists come up here on a regular basis, joining in with the programs you already have going.
Right.
And I can say that these are great because generally you have an auditorium that seats 400 or whatever it is, and then afterwards you go outside and there's even more people waiting to look through telescopes and everything.
Right.
And to me it's inspiring to see that every night you see that, because people are hungry to explore.
Well, and there's no better place, I think, than Grand Canyon. There's very few places on the planet, I should say, that have 2 things going for them at the same time. One, the infrastructure to support people, and the pristine night skies to go with it. I mean, usually you have one or the other, right? You have all the hotels, but you're in Las Vegas and you can only see 4 stars, right? 2 of them are airplanes. And or you're in Big Bend National Park. It's pristine, but it's very hard to get to.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Here we have both. We can accommodate 6 million people plus per year with all the hotels and campgrounds. Yet we're also at the same time one of the darkest night skies in the United States, and that is just a potent combination for making this one of the worldwide hubs of dark skies outreach. And just having Lowell Observatory right there, one of the most significant and important observatories now and in the nation's history, is incredibly fortuitous.
Yep.
And so it's been just an excellent collaboration and partnership.
Well, it's a partnership that we all appreciate, and we continue to see it grow and really enjoy that, and reaching more and more people. It's really inspiring to do that. So with that, we'll wrap up our program. Rader Lane, Clover, Morell, great to have you. Great
Kevin
to chat
Schindler.
with her. Kevin Schindler. And it's great to get